Hi, I'm Jenny with Roots and Wings Furniture, and today I'm going to show you a really neat tutorial called color washing. This tutorial is fun because it's a finish that looks really complicated, but in actuality it's super easy to do. It's also fun because we're using color as a glaze. Instead of using brown or black like the traditional glazes, we're actually brightening and toning the color, giving it lots of layers and dimension just by using another color paint. So if you are ready to give this a try, let's get started. Let me show you what you need. I already painted this piece, which I'll show you more in detail in just a minute. You're going to start with a painted piece of the brightest color that you want to use. So this piece is really bright, it's in your face, and we're going to tone it down and give it some more dimension with a different color. I'm going to put some navy blue paint on this piece here, so we're going to almost make it look like the ocean, kind of like the really nautical fun finish like that. You'll need some water, paper towels, a brush. My favorite brush is the Purdy XL Cub. It's really nice because it fits nicely in my hand. It does have a slight angle to it. This is the 2-inch brush and I use it for everything, so we'll use it today. You'll also need some gloves unless you want a new manicure. So grab some gloves and let's get started. All right, the first thing we're going to do is mix our paint with some water. I like to think about this ratio about half and half. It's not super precise. We're just watering down our paint so it can spread around and go a little bit farther. So I told you we're going to use navy blue over this really bright color. I have it in this container here, and I'm going to mix it with some water. About like that. And then just stir it around really well. I like to use popsicle sticks. If you have them, they make a great little stir stick. There we go. And then we've got a really runny consistency of paint, and this is going to be just what we need to give this piece a really cool finish. All right, this is the piece we're working on. This is a buffet, and I chose this piece because it's got some really nice details. Anytime you're doing a multi-layer finish, the more details you have, the more it's going to stand out. So all of these raised edges, some of the carvings in here are really going to pop once we add another color. This technique is going to bring out any imperfections that you have in the wood and in the finish, whether for good or bad. There are a few paint brush strokes and things like that, and that will show up in our final finish. One more thing, I'm going to do this piece with the drawers in so you can see how it's all coming together. If I were doing this just on my own, I would take the drawers out and set them aside upright so that they would be away from the piece. So that is up to you however you prefer to work, but that's what I usually do. So let's get started. I've got a damp paper towel and a dry paper towel, and we've got our paint and water mixed. And I'm just going to begin up here in this section. We're going to work section by section because as the paint goes on, it's going to dry pretty quickly. I'm going to just brush it on, let it settle in all the cracks. Picked up my dry paper towel, and we're going to begin wiping it back. And you can see what a neat finish we're getting there. You can add more. We can do a couple different layers here. Also, you'll notice if you grab your wet paper towel, it's going to really take off a lot more than the dry. So that's where you can play with it. Make it your own, however you like it. One really important thing to note, if you are using chalk paint as your base layer of paint, be sure it is sealed with something that gives it sealed with something that is water-based, so it has a chance for the new layer of paint to move around. If you don't seal your chalk paint and you begin this technique, all that's going to happen, your paint is just going to sit kind of in a blob, and you're not going to be able to move it and shift it the way you want it. This base color is General Finishes Milk Paint in Patina Green. And then this top coat that we're putting on here is our 50-50 mix of Coastal Blue and water. For a full supply list of everything you will need to create this awesome finish, check out the description below this video. Just keep messing with it until you like the way it looks, and then we just step back and let it dry. This first coat, there's really not a ton of paint that we're using here, so it's gonna dry really quickly. Give it half an hour to an hour to dry until it's dry to the touch, and then we're going to do a second layer to give it even more dimension. All right, our first layer has dried, and we are going to do a second layer to give it, like I say, just even more depth and dimension to this color. If you like it as it is now, if you're happy with your progress, you can absolutely stop now, but we can keep adding colors too if you want a little bit more. So to modify our color that we've got in the jar, we are going to add about a tablespoon of lamp black milk paint, and that's just going to darken it and give it, like I say, just a little bit of a darker shade, same tone, just a darker color. Same thing, give it a stir in your jar. There we go. Just like that. And then we are going to apply it in exactly the same way. I do try to apply the paint as well as the layers in the direction of the wood grain. It just kind of gives it a cohesive look. And you can see how nice the color has settled into the cracks and crevices of the piece, and it's brought out and accentuated the details there. So that's why I love doing this method. And again, how easy is that? And keep in mind, you absolutely don't have to use these colors. If turquoise isn't quite your thing, you could do all blues, you could do reds, greens. And the world is your oyster when it comes to colors and layering. Once again, this won't be long till it's dry to the touch, probably 30 minutes to an hour. Keep in mind, full dry times for this is 24 hours before light use, and then 20 to 30 days before it's fully cure. A couple of options for you. You could absolutely distress this, and I would do it at this point. If you like the finish where you're at and you just want to give a little more detail, make it a little more aged or stand out a little bit more, you could distress the edges with some 120 grit sandpaper just to kind of chip off that paint and give the wood, make the wood come through a little bit more. Another option is clear coat. If you are going to use this piece in a high traffic area, you really want the extra protection for it. I would recommend General Finish's High Performance Top Coat, probably in the flat finish. You don't want to give it too much shine, or flat out flat, either way, just to seal everything in and really protect it. However, General Finish's milk paint itself doesn't need the top coat, which is all that we've used on this piece. So for just light use, for use as a buffet, which is what it is, we don't really need the top coat, but it is an option if you'd like to use it. So I'm gonna finish up this piece and we will show you the final results here in just a minute. Thanks so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to check out my website, rootsandwingsfurniture.com, for more painting tips and tricks and DIY. Also, subscribe to this channel so that you won't miss a thing. Click the button below.